Then we will now continue with agenda item 5J, the draft concept note towards the WHO 13th General Program of Work 2019 till 2023. Keep the world safe, improve health, serve the vulnerable. The relevant document is contained in EUR/RC67/18. This item was added to our agenda only very recently, but is very important and crucial for the future of WHO's work. You have all been informed by the Director General through a circular letter on the draft concept note and the fast-track process to prepare the 13th General Program of Work. The Director General, in consultation with the officers of the Executive Board and with the regional directors, agreed to expedite the preparation of the 13th General Program of Work and take the opportunity to consult already during the regional committees on the draft concept note. I also want to draw your attention to the informal web-based consultation on the draft concept note from the 28th of August to the 13th of October. Following the completion of the regional committee meetings and the web-based consultation, a draft 13th General Program of Work will be issued on the 1st of November, which then will be further considered at a special session of the Executive Board meeting held on the 22nd till the 23rd November, if this is requested. Following that session, a revised version of the 13th General Program of Work will be presented to the Executive Board in January 2018 with the view of its further consideration and submittal by the Board to the World Health Assembly in May 2018 for final consideration and approval. We are at the start of this important consultation process and will take sufficient time during this regional committee to provide the initial input from our region. Without further ado, let me now invite Mr. Imre Hollo, Director of Planning, Resource Coordination and Performance Monitoring, to introduce the document. Mr. Hollo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, Director General, Madam Regional Director. The objective of the session today is to launch the consultation process with Member States about the next General Program of Work, to inform you about the proposed process leading up to the adoption of the 13th GPW, hear your views about the general direction of the draft concept note, and get your agreement about the proposed next steps, which were just outlined by the Chair. We also understand that the draft concept note came late, and not everyone may have had the time to read it and do the internal necessary discussions and coordination. Because of this, we have established a website where you can send written comments until October 13th to be reflected in the next version of the document. Before going into the details of the new General Program of Work, I just would like to take a step back and remind ourselves what the GPW is and how it fits within our current planning framework. Firstly, it is important to note that the GPW is a constitutional requirement. Article 28G of the Constitution requires the Executive Board to submit to the Health Assembly for consideration and approval a General Program of Work covering a specific period. From this definition, it is clear that there's no specific format nor time period set. What is clear from this definition is that the GPW is owned by the Member States. It also serves as the WHO strategic framework and vision for a specified period, providing broad general policy directions for the development of the detailed biannual programs and programmatic objectives for the work of the organization. It is also WHO's main instrument for accountability and transparency. And lastly, it also serves as the basis for our strategic resource mobilization efforts. In terms of its place in the planning process, the biannual program budgets are built on the GPW and are guided by the directions set in there. So in a way, the program budget is the implementation of the general program of work for a 2-year period. Prioritization is a complex and challenging exercise, especially in WHO with 194 member states, and it took more than 2 years to develop the previous GPW. This time, however, our task is much easier. First of all, the SDGs, which reflect a broad consensus by member states, set the key parameters for WHO's focus and priorities leading up to 2030. The SDGs have to be the main organizational framework for our work, and the GPW, or the next GPW, needs to explain how WHO will support countries achieving the SDGs. In addition, Dr. Tedros was elected on a platform of 5 leadership priorities, which have to be reflected in the new direction of the organization as well, and there has been serious consultations leading up to the election process about these 5 leadership priorities. And lastly, there are important ongoing commitments set by the World Health Assembly and by the regional committees, which need to be carefully reviewed. Some may have to be sunset and respected. These 3 areas are interrelated, non-mutually exclusive, and reinforce each other. Building on these, our task is to sharpen the organization's focus and give clear directions for the coming years. What are the key shifts in the new GPW? In other words, what are we going to do differently? Those who attended the ministerial meeting heard the Director General talk about this in detail. I just would like to mention the main directions briefly. First is to align fully with the health-related SDGs targets and indicators. Obviously, the previous GPW could not do it because that was before the time of the SDGs. The second is to focus on outcomes and impact and moving beyond the processes and inputs that we've been focusing so far, and put people at the center of WHO's work. Thirdly, to set clear priorities and follow them through. The organization will have to have the courage to make tough decisions in aligning budgets to priorities when we come to the next program budget 2021. Make WHO more operational, and as the Director General said, that does not mean that we have to be operational in 194 member states, but in those especially fragile and vulnerable states where WHO is needed, we have to change the way of operation. At the same time, it is also important to emphasize that the normative and technical functions will have to be further strengthened, so that the operational work is not coming at the expense of the normative work. Place countries squarely at the center of WHO's work. Results occur at the country level. Country offices have to be fit for purpose, sufficiently funded, and with increased delegated authority to be able to carry out the work that is expected from them. And lastly, provide political leadership. With a strong focus on equity, WHO will fulfill its mandate strategically as the directing and coordinating authority in international health. I must say that some of these shifts and changes have already started as a result of internal work with our colleagues in WHO. This slide shows a draft scorecard, which basically brings all the elements of the draft concept note together on one page. When we had our internal discussions about the draft concept note, we found this one page extremely useful. It is, of course, work in progress, and the finalized version of this will be part of the next iteration of the GPW. So first, at the top, you see the WHO's vision as defined in the Constitution, and we also added the SDG 3 target, ensure health lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. So these will be, continue to be our guiding framework for the next period. Below that, you see the new mission, which underlines the new GPW. These are defined as keep the world safe, improve health, and serve the vulnerables. While we're thriving for this mission, our work is underpinned, again, by driving progress towards SDGs, which is, again, the overarching theme of the next GPW. Little bit below, you see the 5 evolving strategic priorities. Prevent, detect, and respond to epidemics. Provide health services in emergencies, help operate and restore health systems. Help countries strengthen health systems to achieve universal health coverage. Drive the progress towards the health-related SDGs. And provide the world's platform for collective decision-making in health. And above that are the impact and the impact indicators that we talked about as part of the new shift. Because we would like to concentrate on access, we would like to concentrate on people and how we impact people's lives rather than on processes. Finding the right impact indicators is very challenging, and this work is in progress, and we would like to hear your views, if not now, then maybe later, how we could sharpen these indicators. They have to be meaningful, they have to really measure what we're doing, but of course, we have to have the data to measure them. So it's sometimes the ideal and the practical is not the same. And lastly, at the very end, you see the enablers at the bottom of the page. These describe the key elements of the how the organization is going to work, what will be the internal changes that are required to make this happen. This slide is showing what's behind one of the impact indicators. One of the strategic goals is drive progress towards health-related SDGs. And the indicator was percentage of health-related SDGs on track. Now, that is a composite index, and what's behind is a careful tracking of SDGs and SDGs implementation over time that will then inform the overall impact indicator, what I showed in the first page, in the previous page. And we also added elements, for example, AMR, which are not in the SDGs, but which are equally important, and we have to track implementation towards them. A word about timeline. Dagmar has already summarized what are the key milestones, but just to say something here is that the GPW covers a period through 2019 and 2023 to serve as the organizing framework for 2 program budgets, 2020 and 21, and 22 and 23. The goal is to have the GPW approved by the World Health Assembly in May 2018, if everything goes well. And the benefit of this fast-track approach is that it will allow the budget to align us for the budget which is coming 1 year later. So there's going to be a 1-year period that we can prepare basically for the adoption of the program budget and align the organization with the new priorities. The other big benefit is resource mobilization. We can start resource mobilization as early as May 2018 for the new strategic objectives and areas which have been adopted. Lastly, the next steps. So currently we are discussing this draft concept note at the regional committees between August and 13th of October. That's when the last regional committee ends in Wipro. We have started parallel with this process, as I said at the beginning, an informal web-based consultation, and you see the link on the side. We aim to publish the next version, which would be a draft GPW, by November 1st. If we have a special session of the Executive Board, that would take place between 22nd and 23rd November. Then in January, the EB would consider the new GPW, and hopefully it would be adopted by the World Health Assembly in May 2018. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much, Imre Hollo, for your clear presentation. And I still see some flags, I think, from those delegations wishing to speak on RD speech and the general debate. May I kindly ask you to turn down your nameplates? We will continue our discussion on this agenda item. And may I kindly invite those delegations wishing to speak on the general program of work to raise their nameplate. And I give the floor to Estonia, followed by Serbia, then nobody's there. Then followed by Denmark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the European Union and its member states, the candidate countries Montenegro, Serbia, Albania, the country of the stabilization and association process, and potential candidates Bosnia-Herzegovina, as well as Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova and Georgia align themselves with this statement. We would like to commend the Secretariat for this draft concept note. We see the next GPW as the beginning of a new chapter for WHO and for global health. We are committed to continue working together in the coming years with WHO to make progress on global public health. We particularly appreciate that this draft is produced so early during the tenure of the new DG, and we welcome the inclusive process involving all the regional committees. We would like to appreciate some feedback from the discussions that have happened so far at the AFRO and CEARO regional committees. This is a strategic document for the whole organization as well as its member states, and we owe it to ourselves to take the time to get it right. Having only seen the draft document recently, we are not yet in a position to go into details of substance, but we are ready to share our first impressions on it. I am sure that the individual member states will be expanding on what I have to say in the following in this regard. We remain convinced that the world needs WHO as the leader in global public health and a WHO that is effective, efficient, and fit for purpose. We see the GPW implemented by a strong DG in a reformed organization as a way to achieve this. We welcome the suggested focus on outcomes and impact, but we remain curious about the methodology to assess the contribution of WHO in achieving concrete health outcomes. We would like to ask kindly, when will the announced scorecard be available? We strongly support the alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, not just goal number 3, and encourage full implementation in that regard. We welcome the focus on priorities. During the election campaign, we noticed an understandable reluctance of all the candidates to identify negative priorities. But now it would be also the time to identify what work streams can be deprioritized. The need to operationalize is key. Implementation of lessons learned from Ebola are more relevant than ever before. Rapid, efficient, and transparent responses have to be at the core of WHO response to people in need. We support the need to show results at country level and consider that this should play a key part in aligning the 3 levels of the organization. And yes, strong leadership is important, but leadership is not inherited. It needs to be earned, and we see the track record of the new DG as a very positive force for this in WHO. Taking into account the importance of the process ahead of the adoption of the GPW 13, we support the call for a special session on this ahead of the January EB. The EU as a whole assures you of our willingness to engage constructively in the upcoming discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Denmark, followed by Norway. Denmark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Director General, Madam Regional Director. Denmark fully aligns itself with the statement made by Estonia on behalf of the EU and its member states. Denmark also thanks the Secretariat for the draft concept note. We are, of course, still considering the draft, and we will come back with more in-depth comments before the deadline in October. I will, however, take this opportunity to highlight a few of our initial observations on the draft. Denmark welcomes the strategic priority of helping countries to achieve universal health coverage. We welcome the strong emphasis of universal health coverage as both the first line of defense in preventing emergencies, as the first goal in rebuilding health systems after disasters, and indeed of universal health coverage as the umbrella that brings together the various health-related SDG priorities. We are also pleased to see the strong focus on alignment with the SDGs, and in this regard, we welcome the strong emphasis on empowerment of women and girls and the emphasis on the importance of sexual and reproductive health and rights. Finally, Denmark would like to highlight the vital work on strengthening and expanding partnerships with a broad range of non-state actors. We believe the full implementation of FENSA is essential for the future work of the WHO, and we welcome the fact that this is highlighted in the draft. We stand ready to participate constructively in a special session of the General Program of Work in November. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Denmark, and I give the floor to Norway, followed by the Netherlands. Norway, the floor is yours.
Madam President, Director General, Regional Director, ladies and gentlemen, Norway would like to thank the Director General for the concept note for the 13th General Programme of Work. We find it a good starting point for strategic deliberations on WHO's direction over the coming years. It raises the important questions we need to agree on. We agree with the proposal to fast-track the development process and see this process as a unique opportunity to reform and strengthen the organization. The 2030 agenda and the DG's priorities must be the point of departure for the next General Programme of Work. We also support a shorter and more focused document compared to the present one. The 13th General Programme of Work and WHO reform must fit with the overall UN reform efforts. The 2016 Quadrennial Comprehensive Policy Resolution, the QCPR, contains expectations for all entities in the UN development system, with the aim of ensuring that the UN country teams can assist host countries in a coherent, integrated and efficient manner in their implementation of the 2030 agenda. It will be important to revisit drafts to ensure the new General Programme of Work is fully aligned with Guterres reform efforts. We have three main inputs at this stage. First, prioritization. We agree with the proposed overall priorities, the DG's 5 priorities, certain SDG targets not covered by the 5 priorities, and antimicrobial resistance and polio. WHO must set priorities and operationalize them in cooperation with other key actors in the overall global health architecture in order to maximize efficiency. A key challenge in that regard will be to find the right balance between strengthening normative and technical functions and strengthening WHO's operational and humanitarian cluster coordination role in fragile settings. The second is role of the country offices. WHO country footprint can become a key comparative advantage. We support proposals to make country strategies more driven by country needs and to delegate more authority to country offices. But we need to look closely at how this increased delegation of authority will affect relationships between the 3 levels of the organization. Increased delegation of authority must be matched by increased accountability at country level. Accountability needs to transcend up the organization to the senior leadership in Geneva. Importantly, strengthening country-level work means working more closely and integrated with the UN family under strengthened UN resident coordinator system. The QCPR calls for the different UN country teams to develop common business strategies and support functions. This should be a part of WHO's values for money strategy. The third is accountability. We would appreciate the Secretariat's comments on the accountability dimension of the next GPV. WHO has taken big strides in accountability. This needs to continue and go beyond WHO. This includes accountability for joint work, for joint results in line with the 2030 agenda, and the delivering as one approach as called for in the QCPR. Finally, we member states must hold ourselves accountable and ensure that WHO has sufficient and flexible financial resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Norway, and I give the floor to the Netherlands, followed by Finland. The Netherlands, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Netherlands aligns itself with the statement made by Estonia on behalf of the European Union and its member states. Also from our side, thank you for this concept note. This document comes at the right time, and I'm pleased to give you some preliminary reflections. First on process, then on content. As a member of the Executive Board, you have our full support for the fast-track plan to work on the 13th General Programme of Work and to organize an extra EB in November. I hope you can provide us soon with the programme for the 2 days meeting so that we can prepare ourselves well in time. On the content of the concept note, I would like to make the following remarks. It is a very good document that poses the right questions. After the questions, you give us some reflections as answers. It gives us food for thought, and you make clear where you're heading. Translating these reflections to a general program of work will be, of course, a huge job. The document describes your priority, but it doesn't reflect so much on what not to prioritize anymore. Given the ongoing struggle to get enough funding, we would like to hear more from the DG. What activities and work will you suggest to stop doing? For instance, by assessing to what extent something is a cross-border health issue or a health threat, or to what extent is collective global action under WHO flag indispensable. We urge you to already reflect on this issue in the draft general program of work that you will send to us on the 1st of November. We are pleased to read that the document reflects a lot of the Dutch priorities, for example, WHO reform, especially in the area of emergencies and sexual and reproductive health and rights. We do note, however, that the root causes that impede women's, children and adolescent health could be better highlighted, such as violence and discriminations against women and girls. We also stress the importance of SDG target 5.6 to measure success in this area. On antimicrobial resistance, the document seems to approach this issue in a rather fragmented way. This approach does not reflect the leadership priority that it has just become in the current work of WHO. To finalize, we are still studying the document. Several ministries are involved, but you can be assured that the Dutch government will send you a cross-ministerial reaction in the web-based consultation soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Finland, followed by Germany.
Madam Chair, Finland aligns herself with the statement made by Estonia on behalf of the EU and its member states. We appreciate this opportunity to discuss the draft general programme of work and look forward to the continued process. The GPW should cover 4 key elements: building resilient health systems, extending health coverage, promoting health, and preventing, detecting health threats and responding to crises. These components need to be included in WHO's portfolio. Further, mainstreaming gender and human rights policies should be a cross-cutting theme in all WHO activities. The difficulty lies in deciding what not to do. We welcome the recognition that health is not an island, but rather an integral component of sustainable societal development and well-being. It is naturally also a value, a resource, and a goal in its own right. The Agenda 2030 provides us a unique opportunity to move away from silos and work together with a wide range of UN agencies and other partners to attain the right to health for all. Dividing the work between actors who are the best placed to do so will need to be discussed. Additionally, the full implementation of the FEN sub-policies will facilitate engagement with non-governmental actors for global health. This culture of collaboration must also be spread throughout the organization. As we live in the world where the constraints of finances must be observed, seeking synergies between programs and promoting policy coherence will become essential. In order to be a relevant and attractive partner, WHO must be able to measure and demonstrate the impact of its work. We would like to underline that WHO is important to all its members. WHO's work in countries is an essential element of its mission, and we believe that a substantive discussion on how to improve this is required. The new program will be key in defining how WHO supports the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, including universal health coverage. Finland stands ready to support you in this important process. Thank you.
Thank you, Finland, and I now give the floor to Germany, followed by the UK.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Generaldirektor, Frau Regionaldirektorin.
Thank you very much, DG. I wanted to say that we would like to associate ourselves to this concept note. We also support what has been said by the EU on the subject. We support the different priorities proposed, and we want to say that as far as the matters of substance are concerned, there are also some indications when it comes to financing and the matter of cost efficiency and matters relating to the staff. The staff are the main strong point for the WHO in continuing this work. So, having read this concept note, we feel that we're on the right track here. I also have the feeling that there's a new culture to a certain extent that is being introduced in the WHO thanks to this concept note. So I think this is an excellent starting point for our future work. We're very much interested, and we're very happy also to see that there's a general process of consultation that is going to be started on the basis of this concept note, which I think responds to some major challenges. First of all, the main tasks of the WHO need to be allocated some other priority tasks as well. There are basic tasks that need to be developed in such a way that the WHO is recognized and supported from the outside, as is also mentioned in other UN programs. There are also, we need to find responses. We have to say that we have flexible means, but they are limited. So we have to make sure that we can manage our financial means in the best possible way. And in the case of some separation of these finances, and how do we manage this? How do we integrate the funds better to be able to use them in a targeted fashion within the WHO? And also, when it comes to the best possible targeting, we have to make sure that the necessary capacities are target-oriented in order to achieve the main tasks of the WHO. There's one program that is particularly challenging, but we very much support, and there are many that we want to see progress made on. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Deutschland. And I now give the floor to the United Kingdom, followed by Belgium.
Thank you. The UK aligns itself with the statement delivered by Estonia on behalf of the EU and its member states. Firstly, we'd like to take the opportunity to welcome Dr. Tedros, the new Director General, and say that we would look forward to working with you. We thank you for this draft, which gives an insight into initial ideas. We will not add much in detail at this point. We need more time to consider the document. The UK will therefore be contributing to the written consultation, give further feedback. However, we would like to welcome some of the principles that are set out here, and there are a couple of points we would underline. We agree the need for clear role and priorities for WHO. This is very important to us. This is not the first time that we have said WHO needs to focus where it adds unique value and not duplicate what other actors do. It's important to start this conversation with that in our minds. We welcome the focus on outcomes and impacts, and this is vital to resource mobilisation. We look forward to more detail on how this will work, but it is key that we focus resource where the realistic priorities are. We are pleased to see the recognition of the importance of working with a focus that puts countries at the centre. The assurances around improving country-based staff are vital. We look forward to more detail on this, but also call for more reporting of country activity. In addition, we'd like to stress the importance the UK places on AMR as a global threat and call for it to be reflected more strongly in the general programme of work. The current draft mentions this crucial issue only briefly. The UK would expect stronger support and delivery from WHO and urges that it be written more substantially into the draft. The UK sees this as an important document, and we will contribute to its development. We support the proposed additional EB meeting in November and will attend and contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Belgium, followed by Austria.
Madam Chair, Director General, Belgium fully aligns itself with the statement made by Estonia on behalf of the EU and its member states. We welcome the early consultations and the fast-track process towards a new general programme of work. And we're delighted already to provide some preliminary reflections. Belgium is pleased to see the clear pledge to setting priorities, and we are happy to see that universal health coverage is part of the priorities proposed. To decide on priorities in general, we would highly welcome a priority setting mechanism, taking into account criteria such as member states' priorities, burden of diseases, and WHO added value. Secondly, Belgium is carefully considering the proposed shift of WHO towards a more operational role in public health emergencies. For Belgium, WHO's primary role in health emergencies is to coordinate and lead the health cluster in health emergencies. Operational on-the-field interventions are necessary during the initial phase of evaluation and assessment, but shouldn't they be limited to the onset of an emergency intervention and be passed on to other relevant humanitarian actors as quickly as possible? Thirdly and last, next to this operational role, we still believe that the core missions of WHO are normative and technical. We welcome the fact this role is considered in the draft concept paper, and we've read it with much interest, the evaluation report of WHO's normative function. As such, we are keen on getting more information on how the Director General would like to strengthen this role. Mr. Director General, Belgium is looking forward to a constructive process to develop this work programme. We thank you for this occasion to share our ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Belgium, and I give the floor to Austria, followed by Poland.
Madam Chair, Mr. Director General, Austria aligns itself with the comments made by Estonia on behalf of the EU and its member states. We would like to thank you for sharing with us this first draft concept. An essential aspect regarding the next general programme of work is its close alignment with the SDGs. Data availability and statistical consistency are an important constraint for the choice of the statistical indicators, which are the main pillars to monitor and verify the SDGs. Euro has done much in this regard. The regional office timely elaborated an action plan to strengthen the use of evidence, information and research for policy making in the European region, to ensure that evidence from all health sectors will guide the SDG implementation process. This action plan, welcomed by the Regional Committee last year, is the first of its kind and could be the pilot for the global level and other regions. Also for high developed member states, it is of utmost importance to harmonize and rationalize the data collection and data monitoring, and to minimize the reporting burden. We therefore would like to encourage you at the global level to make increased use of the Euro expertise and experience on health information and evidence, as far as the structural frame for health information and evidence is concerned. Especially the mechanism established by the European Health Information Initiative at the European level could serve as a best practice model for the global level. Therefore, we support your proposal for re-engineering the data architecture as a major enabler within the draft concept note for the 13th GPW.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Poland, followed by Sweden.
Thank you. Firstly, Poland would like to align itself with a statement delivered by Estonia on behalf of the EU and its member states. Secondly, we wish to express our appreciation for the concept note prepared by the Secretariat, and we underline that the proposed consultation process and the timeline shows a true dedication of the new DG to the WHO reform. Poland strongly believes that the mandate of the organization cannot be constantly outstretched, and that both member states and the Secretariat have to identify clearly a limited set of priorities for the organization. That is why we welcome this inclusive process. Poland is willing to engage in further discussion on the GPW 13. Poland agrees with the idea to measure the impact of WHO's engagement in improving health and well-being of peoples by focusing on health-related SDGs targets, and in this sense, we would request the Secretariat to use the language on sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights taken directly from the SDGs adopted by the whole UN membership, rather than from UN Secretary General's Every Woman, Every Child strategy, which is not a universal document to us. Finally, we do hope indeed that our comments will be taken into account in the process leading to the development of the first draft of the GPW 13. Thank you.
Thank you, Poland, and I give the floor to Sweden, followed by Italy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Director General, colleagues. Sweden aligned itself with the statement made by Estonia on behalf of the EU and its member states. We would like to thank you for the general program of work, which we consider the main document to set the strategic direction for our work the coming years. The global health trend is clear. We see positive developments in maternal and child mortality, as well as communicable diseases. On the other hand, non-communicable diseases are increasing, also in low-income countries, and antimicrobial resistance is a growing threat. Life expectancy is increasing throughout the world, but the number of people who live healthy lives is not increasing to the same extent. Therefore, we need to measure healthy life expectancy as an ultimate goal. Regarding the suggestion that WHO needs to become more operational, we wish to underline that WHO primarily is the leading normative and technical organization and not a healthcare provider, of course. However, in certain situations, WHO will work more downstream, providing technical support when programs are being implemented. In World Health Emergency Programme, we recognize that WHO is a key partner in the operational work. WHO's role is in ensuring implementation of IHR, and supporting capacity building in countries is fundamental. WHO also has an important role to play as a development partner. As regards to the 5 strategic priorities, we would like to place more emphasis on ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages, giving people the opportunity to live long and also healthy lives. This captures the need for a multi-sectoral approach addressing the broad determinants of health and points to health as an indicator of the achievement of almost all other SDGs. We are pleased with the clear communication from the new DG regarding the importance of sexual and reproductive health and rights and gender equality, and we would like to see this clearly reflected in the GPW. We believe that WHO should provide global leadership for health rather than governance, as suggested in the concept note. It is about providing platform and leadership for different stakeholders and providing opportunities for relevant partners to come together. To conclude, we think that 5 strategic priorities includes highly relevant issues for WHO, but we think that the priorities can be structured, strategized, and communicated differently. Finally, Sweden is of course ready to engage in the upcoming work towards the adoption of the general program of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sweden, and I now give the floor to Italy.
Thank you, Chair. Italy aligns itself with the Estonian statement on behalf of the European Union and Member States. We welcome the purpose to refresh and relaunch WHO's proactive political role in leading the dialogue on multi- and intersectorality of health and its determinants. This is what we need in keeping health high also in our national agendas, and what we expect by the UN ecosystem, as this is not always the case, especially considering the health sector absence from the UN discourse on global compacts for refugees and migrants. We are fully committed to support reform by making assessed contribution higher, based on the credibility of the governance, reform, and plan of work, and this draft goes definitely to the right direction. We feel this is the best way to provide adequate finances to the agency by governments. We expect WHO to lead on emergency action by means of strengthening networks, mobilizing member states' resources, capacities, and intervention potential under one leadership. We do not believe, though, that WHO may solve complex issues of emergencies by inflating its own staff at the detriment of its financial sustainability. We underline the need to focus on climate change and environmental degradation, including air pollution, as the leading factors impacting on health now and in the near future. We believe this may form the basis for new knowledge in such areas as epigenetics, impacting on early childhood, and genomics applied to public health, that the agency may wish to consider in its portfolio of innovations, as we need a reliable global leader in such difficult areas, capable to build economic as well as health cases. Climate changes are also a key factor in orienting movements, populations, and vectors. This will reshape the world, and we are already witnessing evidence with migrants and vector-borne communicable diseases getting into our countries, whose reactions are not always inspired by solidarity. Let me conclude welcoming the new language and the new attitude that the draft is using. This reorientation was badly needed and raises further our expectations for the new leadership. From our side, as countries will stay at the core of the new approach, we pledge collaboration, involvement, and a bit of Italian creativity that we hope to bring to the extraordinary EB meeting in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Italy. I have no more member states on my list, so that we can move to observers. And I give the floor to the representative of International Association for Hospice and Palliative Care, Worldwide Hospice Palliative Care Alliance. The floor is yours. Natalia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. IHPC, International Association for Hospice and Palliative Care, and the Worldwide Hospice Palliative Care Alliance note with concern that the definition of universal health coverage in the draft concept note mentions only, quote, curative and rehabilitative services and omits palliative care. We would like to draw attention to the WHO's own definition of universal health coverage in its, quote, health financing for universal coverage page, which states, universal health coverage means that all people and communities can use the promotive, preventive, curative, rehabilitative, and palliative care services they need of sufficient quality to be effective, while also ensuring that the use of these services does not expose the user to financial hardship. We thank WHO for opening this document for consultation and have submitted our comments via the webpage, as we did with the Montevideo Roadmap on NCDs, the original draft of which also omitted to mention palliative care. The International Association for Hospice and Palliative Care and the Worldwide Hospice and Palliative Care Alliance stand by to support partners and member states to implement palliative care as an essential service under UHC. We also remind member states that WHA unanimously approved a palliative care resolution 67/19 in 2014, calling it an ethical obligation of governments to integrate services and provide access to controlled essential medicines. Moreover, several special Human Rights Council rapporteurs, as well as the independent expert on the rights of older persons, have stipulated a right to palliative care and to essential controlled medicines. As we all know, the agreed language is in the high-level documents, the policies, and the budgets will follow. When the agreed language is in the high-level documents, the policies and budgets will follow. Then the World Health Organization will truly be able to, quote, protect the vulnerable, unquote, by providing much-needed normative and technical guidelines on palliative care. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And I now ask Mr. Imre Hollo and the Director General to respond to the comments and questions raised. Who would like to start?
I think we don't have time, so I will try to cover. Don't worry. And I don't think we need also to react, because I take all your recommendations very seriously. Very good points, by the way. So we don't need to go into detailed response. I concur with all the issues you said, and we're in the construction of the GPW. So we will take your comments and take them seriously and incorporate, and then prepare the revised version, and then avail it to you during our next meeting, together with some of the recommendations you will send us before the deadline in October. So I'm really happy. Although we sent you the document short notice, of course, when you work with sense of urgency, that's what happens. Even ourselves to really organize ourselves, to get the feedback from member states, to get feedback from staff, to get feedback from others, and then prepare this document. We have been working on this day and night. So it's just the same pressure we're putting on you. Because as you rightly said, reform needs urgency. Reform cannot be done with the same approach, business as usual, of having sufficient days to think about it or sleep on it. It's like no sleep, so we have to work day and night and use the few days we have as wisely as possible. So that's what you have done. You have already given us good feedback, actually. You said the time was short, but still the feedback you gave us is really, really good. And I expect more in the next few days. Okay. Since we have the website, they're reminding me about the website. All the comments and so on will be posted in the website. You will also have a chance to see who is giving what comment or what recommendations or what input. So that will also help you in really seeing the perspectives from others. So the regional committee meetings comments from AFRO, from CIARO, and now from here, and subsequently from EMRO and PAHO and WIPRO will also be posted. But to agree on the general issues you raised, I think SDGs, we are agreeing that it should be the foundation. That's actually the source of the GPW. And of course, the vision that we have agreed. I think a combination of this and all your inputs can give us to address the right priorities. And then within SDGs, I think having prominence, the UHC having prominence and putting it at the center of our movement is very important. I have been saying all along the campaign that universal health coverage is the center of gravity. But when I say universal health coverage, it has the component of primary health care. And during lunch, that's why I focused on the prevention and health promotion, because the vehicle for health promotion and this prevention, as you rightly know, is investment on primary health care. And in that primary health care, focus on prevention is going to be very important. We have to really go back to the basics, because be it communicable diseases or non-communicable diseases, the best weapon we have is prevention. Prevention, prevention, prevention. That will reduce really the impact, because hence it is once, a person actually moves into other levels of chronic problems, the impact to the individual itself or to the family and to the country is really, really huge. So focus on prevention is really key. And many of you have already said that. So UHC, primary health care, focus on prevention. I think we hear you very well, and we have to address it that way. And then the others, as I said earlier, can be taken as comments, but to stress some of the issues you raised on sexual and reproductive health, or in general women, children, and adolescents, that's one of the packages. I think that's one area we need to really focus. Many of you said, not only today, but in the past, that although we speak about women, children, and adolescents and sexual, reproductive, and rights, but in terms of action, it's still not as good as one would expect. So I think the action part is lacking, and we have to make it happen. And this is linked to the outcome or impact-based planning that we said we need to bring a shift, and we have to see it in relation to the major shift that we're trying to bring into WHO. Then the other issue which I would like to comment, among others, is on your concerns about being operational. I said it during lunchtime. WHO will even be stronger in terms of the normative functions. And we recognize that the core mandate of WHO is normative functions. It's a specialized agency. But in addition to that, it should be operational where it's needed. So as you rightly said, keeping the balance will be key. And I know that can be done together with you. But the whole world, you have seen already the GPW document, is asking WHO and all health players to make the world safe, to improve health as a well-being, the whole life cycle actually, and also to serve the vulnerable. So we cannot shy away. But as you rightly said, there should also be a balance, because the normative function should not be undermined. And I assure you that I don't think that will be a problem. Then when we come into specific issues, it's the NCDs, for instance, which you have stressed. It's not only the problem of the high-income countries anymore. It's also a problem of even the low and middle-income countries. And we should give it the right attention. And I would like to use this opportunity to invite you, I think many of you have been invited to our NCD conference in Uruguay in October. That will be really one of the platforms that we can strengthen our commitment to fight NCDs, to beat NCDs. But NCDs, I think we should actually, before it's too late, we should tackle it with a sense of urgency. And the sad part is, for NCDs, the means is at hand. We know the risk factors, and we know how to tackle them, be it politically or addressing the commercial determinants, which needs, again, a political intervention, a big fight, a strong fight with the industries. You know it all. I think recommitting to NCDs will be important. So please give your support to Uruguay and the international conference, and there will be a follow-up in 2018. And we need to keep the momentum and take the fight against NCDs to even higher level. Then on antimicrobial resistance, likewise, the momentum is increasing. It's good. We have international agreement already, resolution, but we are still weak on buy-in at country level. Maybe if we say we have made some progress, just a plan of action, preparation by some countries. Of course, it's a good start, but compared to what we called on the sense of urgency, we are nowhere. The buy-in from countries is really poor. We have tried to assess just to understand some of what's going on, and accept the resolution at international level, the buy-in at country level, and the action is missing. So we have to work hard on that also. Then the palliative care, which was mentioned. By the way, when we say universal health coverage, it covers almost all of these issues. The issue is we cannot sufficiently represent all of it in this GPW. It can only be acting as a guide. It's like a high-level agenda. So if you try to find everything in here, you may not find it. That doesn't mean that it's not going to be a priority. So when we say universal health coverage, I think the major issues, assume that the major issues will be there, but it should not be a matter of seeing in this document like everything that we do, as long as the direction and the overall priorities are right. And then on, finally, the deprioritization, as you rightly said, during the campaign, we didn't tell you what we will deprioritize. Now also you said what are those areas that are going to be deprioritized. We have a lot of information now, maybe call it even big data. So we will come up with that. And when we say priority and identify those, that means we will move into deprioritization, or areas that will not be a priority will also be identified. So as you rightly suggested, we will work with you in order to identify the areas that we will deprioritize. But there is one thing that we want you to help us. The problem that we face from member states is if the member state is the pen holder of a certain initiative, even if that initiative is not a priority or could be identified to be deprioritized, then a big noise comes from the pen holder. So are we ready from your side also to really cooperate and then let some of the things go? Because it takes two to tango. Without your cooperation, I'm sure it will be very difficult to deprioritize. That's why the deprioritization issue was sensitive during the campaign, because of the fear that you might not give your vote because we may frustrate a pen holder who is very sensitive about one issue. But from our side, we're really committed, and we will tell you honestly which ones to deprioritize. But from your side, we want you to focus on that particular issue and the measures we have used to deprioritize it and cooperate. I think that's very important. Then I will bring you another example also. For instance, like this one, there are other issues that need cooperation from member states, like making the board as effective as possible or as efficient as possible. The board we have now is not a board. It's another assembly. It is, and you know it. And the problem is, the root cause of this problem is because there is lack of trust between member states. Unless the member state is in the room, a member state who is not a board member and has a chance to speak or table an agenda directly, doesn't want to be represented through other board members that represent the region. I think globally, from my own experience, one of the few probably governance structures that's missing the basics, one is WHO. If you check other organizations, they can have assembly, then they have a board, but the board, if it's composed of 34, only the 34 speak during the board session, not other than the board members. But the other non-board members can be in the room, they can listen, they can lobby their regional representatives to speak on their behalf, to represent them, but they don't speak. Imagine 5 days meeting or 1 week, 36 agenda items, 194 countries asking for the floor. How can you expect a board to be effective? It can't. How can a board be efficient? The reason I'm bringing this example is there are areas where you want us to change, but without your cooperation, it won't change. So it needs the cooperation of both of us on many issues, including the first one I said on deprioritization. Be prepared as pen holders to let go. To let go. And be prepared also on governance reform, which is slow, which is far behind, from your side to let go, saying, okay, we will work through representation through the board. Even countries, you know it, they're led or managed through representation, through their parliament, through their cabinet. And the same thing, WHO, it has the assembly, all member states, but the rest should be delegated to the board, and the board should be trusted and given the chance to lead. Then the board also should empower and devolve the delegation of authority to the bureau. For instance, you know, the bureau is completely dysfunctional, but it could help WHO to do more if the bureau could be functional. So the bureau, with the chair of the board, which are not more than 6 people, can do more to day-to-day engagements with the secretariat to follow up on the agenda items of the board, and also to discuss on the reform issues and bring good quality agenda and proposals to the board. For the first time, we met face-to-face with the bureau, because the bureau is a bridge which connects the governance structure between 2 board meetings. It's actually similar to the standing committee you have, which meets 5 times a year. And the Bureau can meet 5 or 6 times or more with the Secretariat to discuss issues honestly. Some people even warned me saying, you want to make the Bureau more active? Do you want them to meddle in your affairs? I told them, no, it's not meddling. Even if I engage the Bureau on a regular basis, they will help me, representing the Assembly, representing the board. And we can engage on issues seriously on day-to-day basis. They know their role, I know my role, and then we can cooperate. It's not meddling. That people warned me even when I proposed that the Bureau should be more active and engage the Secretariat on a regular basis. But when I propose that, what I'm proposing is let the governance structure be the Assembly or board, work through representation, which is the Bureau, which is the bridge between 2 board meetings, which are like 6 months apart. There is a vacuum. I haven't seen that kind of really system or machine functioning properly when there is no bridge between 6 months. Except some meetings may be in Geneva, which is very informal. We need to go into formal, very engaging, regular type of mechanism. So the reason I said this and emphasized on this is we need from both sides things that we will let go to make WHO better. If we go for a major shift, then we need to really change the way we engage each other and the way our governance structure works. But finally, and I will repeat, thank you so much for the excellent input. Even from what I heard today, I can see that Europe, WHO, member states are prepared for a major shift, and be it as something to let go as a pen holder, or to really let go on this governance structure, like making the board more efficient. I see that you're ready for that. That's what I sensed. And I hope you will really help in shaping up the Secretariat itself and also our governance structure. You have a stake in both, and I know I will have your support. Thank you so much again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tedros, and thank you very much to all of you for your active participation. It's clear that the drafting of the general program of work is extremely important, and alignment with the SDGs will be crucial. We are looking forward to contributing to this important process through written comments and through comments both during the special session of the Executive Board and during the January board meeting. This concludes our discussion on this agenda item. We will now break